So my company in general, it's just me. I'm not some mogul. I don't have, I could have a fleet of trucks and I could do all of that. I've run fleets of vehicles before. I've owned fleets of vehicles before in the past. I don't do that anymore because, not because I don't know how to do it, not because I can't do it, but because I can't do it in the conditions, in the current conditions, the current economic conditions that exist in this country. They are not profitable. Most everything now is just managing debt upon debt upon debt upon debt. And I like to run a cash business. I have run businesses in the past when I was much younger, long time ago, that were debt upon debt upon debt. I have done all of that. I have done the rent-seeking thing. I have gone a million plus, like well over that in debt, rental properties, etc. I've done all this stuff. And I've come to the conclusion that none of that stuff actually works. It's just people running around manipulating debt and playing the greater fool theory. Greater fool theory is just always trying to find somebody else to pay off your debt. And so I stopped all of that cold turkey a long time ago, and I said, nope, I'm done. I'm done with this. I don't want no part of it. And to be clear, I'm no saint, dude. I've done bad business deals. I've done all of the stuff that's out there, and I don't go into this stuff a lot, largely because it's like I'm talking about another person, because I'm not, I don't do that anymore. That's not, you know what I mean? So when you learn from that kind of stuff and you go, you know what, hold on, I already see where this is going to go, you tend to be hesitant to want to do any more big deals and take on a bunch of debt, and then go, and especially when the markets are in decline. But to answer your question, it's just me, and I have my truck, and I own my trailer. I pull a step deck. I don't pull a lowboy or an RGN. I like RGNs. RGNs are expensive. And as much as I love RGNs because of the low center of gravity, that is kind of cool, especially when you're hauling like crane weights on an RGN. Those are awesome. Everything is flat. You can take corners like it's on rails. It's awesome. But that stuff was just too expensive. So I have a regular right now or step deck, a drop miser, and an old truck. So both, and all of my equipment's kind of old. I run the good cat engine, the one with the single turbo, and because of the costs. And so for anybody I guess if there's anybody in the trucking world that I'll kind of morph this into sort of a trucking report, but it's more of just kind of breaking it down. The reason I do all of that is because the costs, I've had engines and I've had trucks that have had DEF or DPF. The cost to maintain those is ridiculous. And it's not just the cost that goes into having to buy the sensors that inevitably go out, or the injectors that go out, or this or that. It's not just that. It's the part that nobody throws into the equation. It's like, well, but it's under warranty. Like when they buy a new truck, guys buy new trucks all the time, and they're like, oh, but it's under warranty. Warranty doesn't cover you sitting in Casper, Wyoming in a hotel room for 6 days waiting for parts to show up. And then waiting for 2 days for the mechanic to get back from vacation to finish the job. I know what I'm talking about on this one. Okay, so yeah, warranty doesn't cover that. In the meantime, your load is sitting on your trailer in some lot somewhere. The customer freaking out, the shipper freaking out, and you're trapped in the middle of it, and there's nothing you can do. Well, they could repower the load. Yeah, they really could repower the load, and then they have to go pick up my trailer, get grease all over it, because I run greaseless. I run a greaseless fifth wheel. And so then I have to clean, and then I have to go find my trailer wherever it winds up. See what I mean? And so there's just cost upon cost upon cost upon cost. So I'm only pointing this out for some of the new drivers out there, or the guys that are wanting to, look into it, or guys that are thinking about it. That's the only reason I kind of point that stuff out. But no, in the shipping lanes that I generally run, I usually stay on the West Coast, or not on the West Coast, but west. Ideally west of 35. out in the great wide open, so to speak, just because there's less traffic. The roads, with the exception of Colorado, tend to be a bit better. Colorado is a disaster. Sorry, Colorado people, but I mean, like, even the Colorado people know that their roads are a disaster. And there's no plastic bags. It's a weird state. Anyway, I try to go through it in one day, so I'm not having to mess with it. And there's no place to park. Truck stops are always just packed. So anyway, and it's a freight black hole you go into. There's nothing out of there. I think I've hauled, like, maybe in my career, like 2 loads out of, like, the Denver area, and it was for something ridiculous, like $1.27 a mile or something. Just something for flatbed, which is ridiculous. That is crazy low. That barely covers your fuel and your maintenance. Actually, it does not anymore. Most of the new companies now, or most of the people that are trying this out now, a lot of them they're gonna run until they can't, and there isn't enough money to cover a lot of the maintenance on the trucks now. I do my own maintenance on my truck. In most cases, unless it's something I legitimately don't have the tools to do, or can't do, or I'm not really 100% confident, then I'll farm it out to somebody else, a diesel mechanic or something like that. But most everything else I do it myself, because if you don't, you're just burning money, and and the costs don't allow that anymore. If you have to pay somebody to change your oil, for example, you're paying what does Speedco charge it now? $450, something like that, for an oil change. For 10, 11 gallons of oil, I think I put about 10.5 gallons in my engine, right around there. And I was running Rotilla, T4, and the cost for me to do it, even with my filters, and you just set up an account and you buy them, buy them at CAT, for pretty cheap. I mean, they're cheaper there than I can get them on Amazon. So it's actually cheaper for me to just go in there and buy them all at one time. And so I'll buy a bunch of them, and I'll buy a bunch of oil and everything. The cheapest is, of course, to buy 55-gallon drum oil and do your oil, and just use your crank. But where I am now, because of the circumstances right now, while I'm renting in between building and everything, I can't carry around a 55-gallon drum. This is not feasible. But you bring your cost down to a couple $100 for your oil change, and especially when you're doing oil changes over 12,000 miles, which for me is like 2 round trips basically, and and I'm changing the oil again. So in some cases it can be not even 1 month, and you're changing the oil. So, I mean, I'm not just trying to bore you with like this. I mean, like this is just stuff that I do. So my extremely boring life, it really is just like that. It really is pretty boring. I haul equipment. I know you saw in the background, you saw the the Genie and so on. Like, yeah, I mean, I pick them up periodically when I can. And I'll haul a lot of crane parts, things of that nature. But general freight is what I'll take, as long as it'll fit on there and I can secure it safely. As long as I can do that, then I'm good. More for my safety and the safety of people on the road, as opposed to just like whether it's legal or not. So anyway, and then just maintain my own stuff. So I mean, if you're kind of curious, like that's what I do, at least in that business. Now, the electricity business and all the other stuff, like that's a completely different video altogether. All that other stuff that I have to do, because you have to do both to try and survive. So I have to draw on several different disciplines. Engineering, electricity, physics, etc. Like, I mean, I draw on a lot of different disciplines all the time, which is why I don't talk to a lot of people. I'm usually in my own head most of the time.